Now on BBC One, it's time for the news where you are. Have a very good afternoon. Bye-bye. Good afternoon, I'm Annabel. Welcome to North West Today. The headlines this Wednesday lunchtime. 7 days a week GP surgeries are announced for nearly 3 million people in Greater Manchester.
We've improved the standard and quality of the service that we give them, so that 7 days now is a truly comprehensive service.
The Blackpool chairman, Carl Oyston, is banned for 6 weeks and fined £40,000 for sending a fan abusive texts. And patients at risk of collapse due to abnormal heart rhythms are helped by research at Manchester University. Greater Manchester is going to be the first place in the country to get the 7-day-a-week GP surgeries promised by the Prime Minister during the general election. As part of the area's NHS Devolution deal, surgeries will be open during the evening and weekends. Patients are already welcoming the move, but the British Medical Association has expressed concern. Well, joining us now from Salford is our political editor, Arif Ansari. Arif.
Yes, Annabel, there's a major health conference going on inside the AJ Bell Stadium, partly to assess how this scheme has gone so far and partly to launch the fact that it's going to be extended to all of Greater Manchester. This matters because it means that Greater Manchester becomes the first part of the country where patients can see their GPs more readily than most places can. If we take a look at the figures, we can see that it means that people get 7 days access to their GP. That's later on till about 8 o'clock in the evening and also at weekends. The cost, £15 million, partly from the government, partly funded locally. And it means that at the moment 500,000 people are benefiting. That will increase to 2.8 million people by the end of this year. It's broadly being welcomed by patients and doctors.
What we've done here is to improve the offer to patients. We've cut down waiting times. We've given them access to 18,000 appointments. We've improved the standard and quality of the service that we give them, so that 7 days now is a truly comprehensive service.
My mother had pounding in her ears. She was getting very stressful and fretful about it and anxious. And we really needed to see a GP. I was very surprised when I rang up. I expected at the earliest it would be a Tuesday, but actually they saw her over the Easter weekend on the Saturday, which put her mind at rest and stopped us worrying too, so it was really good.
So, Arif, how important was devolution in getting this initiative off the ground?
Well, it's certainly significant because the government decided that Greater Manchester would be the first part of the country to take responsibility for its own health service, and they've decided that this is a priority. But these pilot schemes did begin before that was put in place earlier this year, and there are certainly some concerns, not least from the British Medical Association.
The real concern we have is that there are not enough GPs to go around. Many practices are struggling to deliver enough appointments, and many practices are struggling to recruit new GPs, so we must focus any resource that we have on the daytime service to get that right first before we start extending it to weekends and evenings.
They're worried about whether this is financially sustainable, the impact on GP services in other parts of the country. Ultimately, I think this comes down to the question of devolution, which is that if you have different services in different parts of the country, do you accept that some will be better, if you like, certainly different?
Arif, thanks very much. Our political editor, Arif Ansari. 3 people have been charged after the death of a man during a large fight in Tameside. 21-year-old Dominic Doyle died after the fight in Manchester Road in Denton in the early hours of Sunday morning. One man has been charged with murder, while another and a 15-year-old boy face charges of attempted murder. A 16-year-old boy has also been arrested. The new emergency department at Aintree University Hospital in Liverpool opens today. It's cost £35 million to build. The trust says trauma bays have doubled in size and new equipment will mean faster and better treatment for urgent admissions. Cumbria's first countrywide carers conference takes place in Barrow today. It's estimated there are 50,000 carers in Cumbria, 1 in 10 of the total population, but only around a tenth of them currently receive support from the 5 carers charities. Liverpool Football Club has released new footage of the redevelopment of Anfield taking shape. This time-lapse video shows what's been done so far and gives fans a taste of what is to come for the new look main stand. The changes will add around 8,500 seats, boosting capacity to about 54,000. Staying with football, and the Blackpool chairman, Carl Oyston, has been banned from all football activity for 6 weeks and fined £40,000 for sending abusive texts to a supporter. He was charged with misconduct for allegedly referring to Stephen Smith as retarded in a conversation by text. Richard Askham has been following the story and he joins me now. So what does this mean in terms of what he will actually be prevented from doing day to day?
Anything essentially, Annabel, in terms of duties as a football chairman. So that means, you know, the running of the club, contracts, signing players, that sort of thing. It doesn't extend to him being banned from Bloomfield Road altogether. Now, this might be a bigger deal for Blackpool than perhaps some other clubs, because Carl Oyston is the man who does all those things, buys players, signs contracts off and so on. Although, having spoken to some of the fans groups today, they do think the punishment is particularly weak. Also, it's suspended for 4 weeks, starts on July the 8th, ends 10 days into the season, I think it is. Carl Oyston will also have to attend a mandatory education session as well.
And this is probably the last thing the club needed, isn't it, after so many problems last season?
It is really, yes. We're going to see pictures now of the final day of the season. The FA and Football League are currently investigating this as well. It was a pitch invasion that led to the final game of the season being abandoned. Carl Oyston had previously apologised unreservedly for the messages, I should say this, in which he is said to have used phrases including educationally subnormal and enjoy the rest of your special needs day out. I think that those pictures we saw are evidence of just how toxic the situation has become between supporters and the Oyston family and Carl Oyston in particular.
All right, Richard, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about the story. Now, a debate will take place in Parliament later over the collapse of Rochdale-based Carcraft. The firm, which also had sites in Liverpool and Trafford and employed 500 staff across the country, went into administration in April. The MP for Hayward and Middleton, Liz McGuinness, says she now wants a full investigation. She spoke to me a little while earlier.
Well, I asked the Department of Business Innovation and Skills if they would have a look at the business practices of this company, and they actually advised me to call for a debate in Parliament, which is what's going to happen this afternoon. I've got a 1.5-hour debate on the closure of Carcraft. The other concern I have is about the fact that they carried on trading right up until the 30th of April, selling cars and warranties to people, warranties that they knew they couldn't fulfil. And I do want an investigation into that sort of business practice with a company that knows that it's approaching insolvency.
Ultimately, though, I suppose as sad as it is for the workers and for the people that may be out of pocket now, the company has gone out of business. So what can you possibly gain from carrying out an investigation?
Well, what I want to gain is some redress for the workers who, through no fault of their own, you know, they were loyal workers for that company. They were misled as to the financial state of the company. They believed that their jobs were secure. Several of them have said that they turned down offers of other work because management at Carcraft were assuring them their jobs were safe. And I would like to at least make sure that those workers get the full redundancy that they're entitled to, and also any other pay that they should have got. And I do hope that we can do something about the status of workers when they're involved with companies like this that suddenly go into liquidation.
All right, Liz McGuinness, thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Now, scientists at Manchester University believe they may have discovered why some seemingly fit young athletes die suddenly from heart disease. Working alongside the British Heart Foundation, they've identified a specific gene which could be to blame. It means people can be tested and forewarned of possible problems before they arise. Our chief reporter, Dave Guest, has more.
Daniel Whitaker has learned to live with his heart condition. It first showed itself when he was in his teens, a keen athlete and championship runner.
Yeah, it was definitely a shock to myself and to a lot of my family and friends. Used to train 6-7 times a week and push my body right to the limits.
So they knew Daniel had heart problems, What they didn't know was why a young, otherwise fit man should suffer them. Now, researchers at Manchester University have provided an answer by identifying a specific gene.
We have been able to clearly link the mechanism which link the abnormal gene to the irregular heart rhythms, and we have discovered that they are related to abnormal calcium levels in the cell. And really, over the last 10 years, our knowledge and understanding of this has grown exponentially.
Daniel's daughter Lily has been tested, and she too has the gene.
We don't know whether she'll be symptomatic from having the gene or not, but as a precautionary measure, she's on a beta blocker to try and prevent any arrhythmias, because obviously they are life-threatening events.
Obviously scary to know that she's got this condition, but at least forewarned is forearmed.
And that's the main thing, and I know that the professors from Manchester, along with the British Heart Foundation, they're working really hard at the moment to try and research further, to try and make it so that this gene can be controlled through medication. So hopefully in the future my daughter Lily will be well controlled and well maintained, that she'll hopefully be able to lead a normal lifestyle.
Dave Guest, BBC North West Today, Bake Up.
Let's get the weather now with Sara Blizzard.
Good afternoon. Well, it's a pleasant day today. We've started off with relatively clear skies first thing this morning. In fact, the majority of the cloud is sitting a little bit further south. So I think because of the clear skies, the UV levels are certainly very high today. It's just something to be aware of. But it means that it is going to be a fine day for the Isle of Man and the TT races. A little bit fresher there, highs of 16 Celsius. Inland, though, a maximum of around 18 to 19. But if you suddenly find yourself in the shade, well, it does still feel a little bit cool at times, and that's due to the easterly breeze. Now, through the evening and overnight, just a very small amount of cloud development into the early hours. There's a chance of some mist and fog forming as well in rural areas. Nighttime temperatures dropping down to a minimum of around 8 Celsius. But through tomorrow morning, again, another lovely day in store. In fact, it is going to be a little bit warmer tomorrow. Slight change in the wind direction. A bit more clouds starting to come in across the south, though, but the daytime temperature reaching a maximum of 21 Celsius. Now, we are going to start to see a change in the weather as we get closer to the weekend. We've got this area of low pressure, still a little bit of uncertainty about the track of the band of rain that's linked to it, but it could, through Friday, although it's quite a warm day, produce the odd heavy thundery shower. And it also gives us a slightly fresher and damper outlook for the weekend.
And that's it. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
It's the danger in Doctors Next. We get to escape to the continent when we embark on a German lakeside adventure later on BBC One at 3.